Hey, 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 everybody, it's Thursday. And you know what that means? Yes, that's right. It's episode 75 of The Real Deal Pod with Allister and Geoff. We've got sunshine. We've got rates falling. We've got the Toronto Blue Jays on the verge of winning the World Series. But most importantly, that's right. We've got me, Allister Carrington, your trusted realtor. We've got Geoff Lee, your trusted mortgage lender, your trusted mortgage guru. Geoff, buddy, how's it going, man?
Yeah, it's going well. Coming off of a late night watching those Blue Jays go to 18 innings and eventually not coming out with the big W, but yeah, up 3 games to 2. I
Yeah,
think
man.
that's a surprise for many.
Well, the Dodgers payroll is pretty hefty, so a lot of people had the Dodgers winning, but as a lot of the don't want to call them critics, but people on the other side, they were saying that the test for the Dodgers was going to be their bullpen, and that is what has been proving to be their weakness because that's been their weakness all year, and the Blue Jays have been doing a good job at getting through their bullpen. You know, it's funny. I was watching a documentary last night on Netflix called "Who Killed the Expos," the
Well,
Montreal Expos.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I always like I remember the Expos. That's when I actually paid attention to baseball. But it was funny because that year of the lockout, they were on the brink. They would have won. They were the favorites to win the World Series. So they would have technically been the last Canadian team to win the World Series. But as we know, they had the lockout, and then the next year they were sold and they moved.
Yeah, I didn't know that they were that doing that great when they did,
Yeah,
but
yep.
I always say they were supposed to. How many times are is a team supposed to win and then they don't?
In baseball, it's different. In baseball, in that's the one thing about baseball. Baseball and basketball are the two sports where and hockey, I will say, and hockey, I will say, and it's almost because of the way that they're they're uh, they're not one game playoffs, right? So in a 7 game series, 90% of the time, the better team will always win because it goes over a longer period of time. Whereas in something like, whereas football, for example, because it's a 1 game playoff, you have always the opportunity for an upset because on any given day, a team can beat another team once. So that's why in sports where you've got a 7 game series, normally the better teams will always win out. So yes, teams that in baseball or in hockey and stuff like that, teams that are supposed to win typically will win. To
Yeah,
answer your
no,
question.
I think my opinion on that is I agree with most of what you say, but I also know, and you know from playing sports, like you just said, any team can beat a team on any given day. But if you become hot in the right time, sometimes the better team isn't going to win because you have a team that's just moving well, right? So,
Yeah, not
but
over the
but
course of 7 though. This is coming from my background, not over 7. A team that's just markedly better. Like if you're the number one team facing off against a team that just slid into the wild card, right? Unless that team has been underperforming for the majority of the year, yeah, then you're gonna. But if it's a team that's just not that good, got on a little bit of a heater, it just traditionally doesn't happen. And that's why when you look over statistics, you'll see, oh, it has only happened 3 times in 100 years that this team has done this, and that's because it's done over a 7 game series.
yeah.
But yeah, man. But good on the Jays because I will say the Jays, like I didn't think that the Jays were the underdogs coming into this series because my father-in-law watches the Jays like crazy, so he talks to me about them all the time. And so from everything that I understood throughout the year, the Jays have been amazing all year long, right? I would have actually been surprised if the Mariners had beaten the Jays. I thought the Jays were going to the World Series.
Yeah, I thought
But
I was in the World Series.
there you go. Right? Right on, man. You almost ready for Halloween?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Got all your candy bought? You don't. You don't have any of your candy bought yet, do you?
Nope.
No. Well, there you go. Get out there today. I've got all the candy. Well, I didn't get it all out. My wife got it all the candy purchased, and we're all set up for the kids. And my daughter, she had her first high school dance yesterday.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Crazy. We're at that stage of high school dances and all that sort of good stuff.
I didn't even think they had those
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this one's interesting because again, like we've talked about it before, this weird age this thing from 8 to 12 in high schools now. This one was for grade only the grade 8s and grade 9s. So they
Hmm.
didn't yeah, they didn't have 10, 11, 12 weren't allowed to those. So I don't know if they have them in 10, 11, and 12. My son doesn't go to them. He didn't even go to the ones in grade 8 and grade 9. Not that I remember. So yeah, so I don't know. I just was like, oh wow, dance. I would just thought about that to myself, going, I remember in junior high, 7, 8, 9, going to my first um, dances. And then when we got into high school, they weren't cool anymore. So you didn't go. They were cool to go to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Yeah, if you were a cool kid, you didn't go to those things. But I don't know, man. Well, man, let's kick it. Let's get this party started with podcast's hottest segment, and that is
Did you
That's
know?
right, baby. Did you know? So, Jeff, did you know that Canada's own federal housing minister, our dear Gregor Robertson, has once again said that average home prices need to fall
Oh my.
to restore affordability? So, that, of course, is a bold statement, especially when you consider what that actually means in practice and not just in theory. So, I wanted to unpack this because 10 days ago, Robertson told the House of Commons Finance Committee that Canada needs average home prices to come down, not necessarily individual home prices. The goal, he says, is to build a lot more non-market housing to help lower the national average cost of housing. So this is where this gets tricky, because this is the thing that I've always had a hard time understanding. How do you bring the average price down without individual prices falling? It's kind of like saying you want the temperature in the room to drop, but no one should feel colder, right? Theoretically, the minister's point could make sense if enough deeply affordable non-market housing is built that it shifts the statistical average. But in practice, especially in markets like British Columbia, that's a steep hill to climb. So think about this. 3 days ago, Remax Canada came out with a report stating that stated Metro Vancouver's home prices have spiked 326% over the past 3 decades. The average price of a home in 1994 was about $303,000. Today, it's over 1.29.
Hmm.
So that's a price climb that outpaces wage growth, population growth, and certainly the pace of new housing. Remax Canada also reported that the region's population rose by nearly 74%, but the number of homes only grew about 50%. So it's simple math. More people, fewer homes equaled higher prices. So when the minister says we'll restore affordability by building non-market housing, it raises a question. Can we actually build enough of it to meaningfully move the national average when provinces like ours, the price gap between a detached home and a condo is measured in millions? Or can be, sorry, measured in millions? If average prices are to drop without touching individual property values, then the only path is a flood of new lower price units, likely in the condo and townhome market. So that means affordability might improve statistically, but not necessarily for the average Canadian trying to buy a single family home. And this is where I've said before on the podcast that in that they believed by the time in about 15 years that only 5% of the people in British Columbia will own detached homes.
Mm.
Right? So sorry, I just got lost in my notes here. So while attainable ownership shifts almost entirely towards condo and similar markets or strata properties, that will again leave majority of our population outside of the detached market. And this just isn't a market story; it's a generational one. In 2001, the average Canadian needed 7 years to save up for a 20% down payment. By 2021, it was 17 years. And in Vancouver, it was 27 years. So even with today's market corrections, it's still now on average of about 13.7 years on an average nationwide. So while Ottawa's Bill C4 aims to help with the tax break up to $50,000 for first-time buyers, that doesn't address the root issue, the ratio between income, land cost, and supply. So here's the real question, Jeff. For you, Jeff, this is where you're going to come in. Can we build affordability, or do we just build statistics that look like affordability on paper?
I'm saying that we're building statistics that look affordability on paper. That would be where my check mark would go in.
That's where I'm at, because I remember him saying this before, and I don't know if we joked about it on the pod. I know I was joking about it offline, like how does that even work? But when you really start to unpack just again the increase, I didn't know, again, because I have not lived here since 1994. I did not know that the housing cost increased 326%.
That's the cost, not the equity growth.
Not the equity growth, that's the cost. Right, that's the cost of a home, from $303,000 to 1.29. Yeah. That is an exorbitant leap, right? So again, if you're going to say house prices need to fall, but we can't have individual home prices fall, that's impossible.
Yeah.
Because you can't create more detached homes and say that it's not going to drop below 1.29 million.
Yeah.
Right?
Because the cost is the cost.
The cost is the cost. Right? So that's where I think we're getting to. I'm starting to believe that this is just a lot of lip service, right? That we're not actually going to be able to truly address affordability. We're just going to, we're just going to hide it in again, building a whole lot of vertical homes. We talked about that as being one of the new sectors that we'll see is vertical living, right? So we'll build a whole lot more condos, modular homes, and some townhomes, and we'll say, okay, people, that's what you're going to live in, and the 5%ers will live in the detached homeland.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
Sound like I guess my question is like, if a home is 1.2 million or 1.25 million, how are you going to make it affordable? Like how are you going to do that? Number one, what's the cost of the land? What is the cost to build? And how are you going to make both of those in a way that it now becomes affordable to more than 5% of the Canadians? That if we're talking detached homes, right?
Yeah.
If we're talking vertical housing, that more is maybe in line as far as the affordability, just because the overall cost of building bulk or an abundance of inventory may come in a little bit sharper than if you're just building a single detached home. So I'm really curious on how that would look like. It just, again, it's like when you're in New York following the peanut, right? It's just,
right.
It's just okay, well, where did it go? It just doesn't make sense as far as what's going on. Like, what kind of magic sauce are you working with in order to make a 1.25 million detached home go down to 900,000?
Yeah, really, in my belief, we're just reshuffling the numbers.
Yeah,
that's all it is, just going to be a reshuffling of the numbers.
Yeah.
So That's my did you know for today, my friends.
Yeah,
We've seen an increase of 326% in our home costs. We've seen a 70% increase in population growth with a 50% increase in build of new homes. And that's where we've gotten where we are.
I always segue into your did you knows to what I talk about. So, how are people going to afford it? Well, hopefully they're not going to be creating mortgage fraud.
Yeah, let's not go that way.
So
Although, hey, listen, although I will say though, man, I remember I was out with a client one time and they were saying, and we were talking about a property, and I was like, okay, well, what is your approval going to look like for this? Like, are you good? Da 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 da. And he happened to say, I didn't tell you this, but I've got a guy that for $10,000 will get me approved for anything.
yeah.
Suffices to say, I did not do business with that gentleman because I did not want to be caught on the wrong end of that. I actually, and I don't know if I would have gotten, but morally, I just couldn't. But true story, 10 grand.
Yeah, it's again, I had I had conversation with another realtor, and same thing. There was a representative from a financial institution, actually a big six bank, a mobile mortgage broker, not a broker, that was offering clients that, hey, we can create fraudulent documents in order for the numbers to work, but again, it's going to cost you $10,000 to do.
Yeah.
And so it is there. People do it. Um, this individual did get caught. And this is where I always say, this is the difference between say a bank mobile specialist to a mortgage broker, is that bank mobile specialists, they are not governed by a regulatory body. They're governed by, the financial institution that they work for. A mortgage broker is a licensed professional governed by a regulatory body. So the difference in this particular case, if somebody was to get busted for mortgage fraud in regards to documents as a mobile specialist working for a bank, there isn't any reprimand to them unless the bank or whomever lays charges. As a broker, because we are governed by a regulatory body, we are getting our licenses taken away. We are getting fined. There's criminal charges that could possibly be laid. So again, when people say, well, what is the difference between a mobile specialist that works for my bank to a mortgage broker? Well, there's a lot. And regardless of what anybody will tell you, and usually the directive is coming from that mobile specialist about the pros and cons of using a mobile specialist to a broker, that mobile specialist really is talking, pardon the French, out of their ass.
Yeah.
So let's talk about mortgage fraud because, again, it is out there. We are seeing a large amount of mortgage fraud rising here across Canada.
I was going to ask that. Have you seen an increase, or has there been an increase in mortgage fraud, especially with the cost of homes? Because we just finished speaking about that, right?
Yeah, personally, myself, I haven't seen a lot of mortgage fraud or our clients coming to us and suggesting these types of things. In fact, in my whole 15-year career, I've never really ever came across it. But the reality of it is, mortgage fraud happens on the daily. And I think, well, not I think, I know with sophisticated tools that are out there now and artificial intelligence, um, fraud is becoming more and more uh, relevant or prevalent, but also, the fraud that's happening using these AI tools is incredible. It's crazy.
Yeah.
As far
Yeah.
as what AI can do, right? So lenders are becoming aware that, hey, there is possibilities of fraudulent documents. There is a large consensus that not a lot of these documents, but when they are fraudulent, they're very sophisticated documents because of just the resources that are out there with AI. So what we need to understand though is that, victims of mortgage fraud can lose their savings. They can lose their homes. So like again, if you're purchasing a home under fraudulent activity, that lender can demand the payment of that loan. You're going to be Your credit is going to take a huge dip, and fraud ranges from a whole bunch of different things, from fake documents to crypto scams. Right? We see a lot of Bitcoin. We hear it. We don't see it. We hear a lot of these Bitcoin scams. And again, this is one of the reasons why cryptocurrency isn't used as a down payment in today's lending environment. So I think the one thing that we have to understand when we are working with mortgage fraud is understand what it is. And what mortgage fraud is the misrepresenting of income, debts, or employment. Mortgage fraud is identity theft. So you're using someone else's identity to secure mortgages. This is really big down in the States.
Sure.
Fake or altered bank statements or tax returns. And this is where I go back to the utilization of AI. Gaming are doing fraud for profit, like flipping. We've talked about flipping before, and inflating those in those prices. I think the term is flip shadowing or shadow
flipping. Yeah.
And again, like there's so much digital fraud that's out there, and online scams, right? So we really have to be aware of what fraud is, and really being aware as far as how to prevent it. Like even again, like Alistair, how many times have you heard people's data being held for ransom, like on their computer?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And that's all from, again, getting an email that looks totally legit, clicking on a link, and then all of a sudden you have a ransomware in your, or not a ransomware, but you got a bug in there that's basically holding you for ransom. And all of a sudden you have to basically pay an X amount of dollars to get out of it. Like that's cyber fraud. But when we're talking about mortgage fraud, again, it's about the fraudulent use of income documents, tax documents, bank statements, again, everything that you're using to qualify for a mortgage.
Now, here's a question for you, because you said, like, as a victim, you risk losing your savings and homes and stuff like that. And I would say if you're knowingly doing this, you're not technically a victim, you're a criminal. And so you deserve to lose your stuff. Now, but the flip side, can you go into this thinking, oh, I'm submitting my documents, da 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 da, and this broker just wants to get paid, so he or she fraudulently misrepresents you on the other side, and then all of a sudden you're unaware, but you get caught up in all of this. Is that possible?
Well, I think anything is possible, but if all of a sudden I'm getting approved for something that I know that I shouldn't be getting approved on, and for me to kind of say,
but what if you didn't know? What if you're like a first-time buyer, you're uneducated, you don't really know what, like we always say, how the X amount of dollars per X amount of dollars that you make, right? You don't know what that ratio is. So you just say, hey, I want to buy this $700,000 townhome. You didn't know that you only qualify for 500, right? And they just say, sign these documents, and you just sign them away.
Yeah. I think my immediate response is, you always know.
Okay.
My second response would be, and to our initial part of our conversation, there's usually a charge that's being incurred for a document to be altered.
Right.
So to play ignorance, to say, well, I don't know how I made this happen. I think if that was the case, I would probably bet my left pinky that, yeah, you did know, right?
Okay.
That's my opinion. Can it happen that you didn't know? I don't know. I that would be a tough one for me to swallow.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because that's why I was just saying, when you had said victims, I was like, these people aren't victims. These are criminals, man.
Yeah, the victims come more to the identity theft, right? The victims come more to people that have identity theft. Basically, they're under their identity, they're getting mortgages secured to properties, not knowing about it. And then again,
That was
having
a big thing in the States.
having to deal with that, like with again, if Alistair, you're unknowingly owning a property that now is going through foreclosure,
Yeah.
and your name is on there, they're coming after you, right?
Yeah.
You're the one that's on there. You're the one that has to, technically pay back the loan that is on this property that you're unaware of. You know, it's you because of this identity theft. You are the victim. Now, again, that also being said, if there's an individual that has utilized a fraud service and basically, was well knowing what was going on when they purchased the home, then yes, obviously they're not the victim. They're what's the word?
Perpetrator.
The perpetrator. So yes, there are victims, there are perpetrators, but again, it depends on I guess where you fall into it when the
Sure.
mortgage fraud happens, right? So some of the classic things that people look at when there are fraud or the red flags is there's that inconsistent or that suspicious of paperwork. Now, this is more obviously on the mortgage side of things.
Yeah.
There's always that pressure to sign or act really quick. Like, hey, we got to do this. We got to do this. There's always this guaranteed approval, right? Or unrealistic rates. There's professionals that are discouraged that have discouraging questions. And there's just unclear explanations of loan terms, right? So the biggest flags that I see coming on the borrowers where we have had people forward us suspicious paperwork where it just, hey, this just doesn't make sense. It's not lining up right. It's not aligned properly. It's just very inconsistent. They pressure you as far as like, hey, we need to get it done. I have a condition of finance. Like, they're pushing you along too quick. Those are the big flags that we see, especially within the documents. But again, those documents are getting better and better with the utilization of AI and basically what's offered out there, right? So
yeah.
So again, some of the things that we have to always worry about with more mortgage fraud is that title and ownership issues. Remember, this was really big in the States as far as title fraud.
Yeah, getting numerous titles pulled on your property and then
right.
selling them off
This
those
is one
three
of the
different
reasons
people.
why here in Canada we have title insurance.
Insurance,
right?
yeah.
There's again people when they're doing refinancing or even purchasing in a market like today is inflated appraisal prices, right? That aren't matching up to fair market value. Like we do see that as well. Property flipping multiple times in a short span. I don't think we're seeing that as much in today's market.
No, that's because we also have the rule where we have the flipping ban now.
Right.
Right.
So there are regulations and guidelines that are in there.
Yeah.
We've talked about like fake job letters or unverifiable employers. And again, there are some lenders out there that actually don't require job letters. They just require a pay stub and confirmation of a deposit. So again, sophisticated people, if they know the system, they know how to work around that system in order to get, these job letters, not these job letters, but to get around that income qualification or that income condition. And then there's always that over promises of rental income or returns, right? So again, this is back to, hey, purchase this. A lot of joint ventures and investment properties, you'll see a lot of this where there's a lot of numbers that actually, when you actually look at them and when they actually come to light, they just don't make sense. There's just over promises as far as what that investment might look like.
Sure.
So there's lots like modern risk in 2025, large unexplained cash transfers from down payments. Again, lenders will always take a look at bank statements. And if there's large deposits going into the bank account, there's extra due diligence that comes from there. Again, we've talked about cryptocurrency and using that for down payment. That is a huge no in today's lending environment. Last minute instructions as far as like, hey, now I need to do this or now I need to do that. That's a trigger. And again, when we take a look at documents like spelling mistakes, how they're aligned, again, just the document review, names being misspelt, you'd be amazed on we see when we are in these training seminars. And again, a pressure is to skip independent legal review. Like again, we're doing a private purchase, right? Just Allister and me, hey, we'll get this thing done. You don't need a realtor. You don't
Don't
need
need a
legal
lawyer.
opinion. Let's just kind of get this done. I'm going to give you a deal, right?
Yeah.
And then basically once it gets there, that deal isn't such a great deal. So how do you protect yourself? Again, work with licensed professionals. Make sure that you're using that what do we call that? Multi-factor authenticity.
Authenticity.
Right. So make sure you're safeguarding your identity with
Yeah.
let's just call it a two multi-factor system.
Yeah.
Strong passwords. Don't use the same password for every password that you have. Again, verifying banking details before sending money. We see a lot of this on marketplace scams, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's the same thing on the banking side. Big one, report suspicious activity to the police and the anti-fraud center. And really your best defense, education,
Exactly.
right?
Question for you, Geoff. Do you guys, on your end, do you have to report to FinTrack?
Under the new Mortgage Service Act, yes, that is a new act that's coming in that's going to be rolled out come October 26th.
Yeah.
FinTrack is going to be a large part of that Mortgage Service Act. It's going to actually reflect the Real Estate Act and basically
Yeah.
how its workflow is and how its processing is.
Yeah.
But as of right now, no, we don't need to report to FinTrack unless we're basically getting audited.
Okay. Yeah. See, so every deal that we do, whether it's on the buy side or the sale side, we have to report to FinTrack. So we have a series of questions that we have to go through, and then if we have any suspicions or anything like that, we have to report it down and all that sort of good stuff. And it was funny that one of the things that you were going through. Which one was it here? It was inflated appraisals not matching local sales, right? I was kind of laughing because one of our things is like if somebody's not wanting to negotiate and says, "Oh, I'll just pay whatever," or "I'll just give them that," we actually have to flag that as suspicious activity,
Yeah.
right?
I shouldn't say like under the new AML anti-money laundering compliance laws that rolled out last year, we do have to do like a politically exposed verification. We have to
Yeah.
do a risk assessment. We have to do an ID verification. But we don't necessarily have to report it to FinTrack. But
Yeah.
what we do have to is we do have to report any suspicious activity when it comes to down payment or ID or just anything of nature, right?
Mhm.
So that is actually been rolled out back in October of 2024. But again, under this Mortgage Service Act, again, things are just becoming a lot more intense.
Sure. Yeah, they're aligning both sides. It sounds like that you guys now are having to follow the exact same stuff that we've been having to follow for some time now.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is good. Which is good. Again,
which is good.
it
Yeah,
reduces the fraud and it reduces the money laundering that goes on and all that sort of stuff.
yeah. It's just a lot of transition and a lot of again, when I think with anything in life, when you get used to doing it one way, when they do shift the gear on you a little bit, that transition and that and now you're walking on new grounds. It's just a little bit. You just got to get used to it.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. It's funny because you'll hear older realtors that have been in the business, for let's say 25, 30 years. They'll say, "I remember when a transaction was one page.
Yeah.
Now I've got 7 different forms that I've got to hand it in." For me, when I started, it was 4 forms, right? And everybody was already up in arms saying 4 forms is too many. And now I'm up to 7 or 8 different forms that I've got to supply. But it's true, right? It just takes a little bit of time to get used to, but again, the most important thing is that it protects not just us, but it protects the client as well, right? It's protection for everybody. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, exactly.
awesome, awesome, man. Well,
That's it.
that's it. That's it. I got nothing else. You got anything else?
No, that's it. That's it.
Well, ladies,
I just wanted to also like commend you on your did you knows. Last week's did you know in regards to the Cowichan Nations and that land that was being sold as freehold now
yeah,
going on to a native reserve, and now as I believe it's in the state of appeals. I have been interviewed by Western Standard and Globe and Mail as far as our insight and our comments on that. So
very nice.
be on the lookout. Be on the lookout. We're going to be in the Globe and Mail and the Western Standard and just have our insights and our comments on what's going on. So again, thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention, because I think we were ahead of it before everybody else was.
That's fantastic. Good for us.
Good for us. Yeah.
Good for us. Amazing. Well, that's a great way to end the pod. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for continuing to listen and support us. We look forward to having you back for episode 76. Yeah, I believe we'll be sitting at 76. Well, people, until then, have an amazing weekend. Have a safe and happy Halloween. Enjoy those little kiddos coming out to ask for candy. And again, make sure you give them enough so that they don't egg your house for the rest of the year. Geoff, you get out there and go get some candy so you can protect your house. Again, it's paying protection to the mafia. Those kids, man, they take it seriously. They want their candy.
They do.
They do. Well, again, everybody, thank you so much. Continue to love, like us, share us, tell everybody you know about us. Give us your comments, give us your feedback, and most importantly, stay empowered, stay informed, and Geoff,
stay tuned, but not just
stay tuned.
Everybody
stay tuned, baby. That's right. Peace out.